awesome.
Yep, they have some. It took a while to flush, but it was kind of tight there.
Did I ever show you pictures of my sister's grandson when he got the Oscar? Well, we've been so busy. How's your mom doing? This is him. This is the two producers, and this is Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was one of the voices. And this is Tom Hanks' wife. And they're both in the hospital now in Australia with this thing.
What movie was that?
Yeah.
What movie was that for?
And then picture of his wife. With Josh's wife. And the Oscar.
What movie was that?
Toy Story 4.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that animated?
Oh, yeah.
This is when they were in the airport. They caused quite a stir because they got so many Oscars in the
Oh,
tray.
yeah.
And there was 3 of them because the two producers did them. So everybody was out taking pictures. As soon as they saw those, they yanked out their cell phones and started taking pictures. It was crazy.
Yeah. A lot of them.
Oh, I need to sign those too.
The church in Homer, Alaska is closed, and she's doing live streaming. You kind of get cabin fever afterwards. Yeah.
And everything is based on people's immune system and stuff.
For sure.
And ours is always straight. A lot of ways. Life to, you're better off, of course, if you don't smoke.
Yeah.
Use alcohol.
Just gotta be.
And this time, there's probably a lot of disease from the people who are so but and just washing your hands.
Right. Right.
Linda, I think
They just wash your hands.
And don't-
Try not to touch the eyes and the nose.
Yeah, that's really hard because people do that, just a natural, they don't even think with
They say that even the masks might bring on more problems.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I keep trying to remind myself.
And then our youngest son is in tech in a large New Jersey hospital. He said the worst thing at first is that people were running to the hospital. They had a cold and they thought they had a virus. So they were bombarded.
And Dick's granddaughter said too, she's a respiratory therapist.
Oh, yeah.
And she said they have to wear all of the hazmat stuff and everything. She said, that's a pain.
Oh, right. It is a lot.
And they were gonna go on a trip. Well, they were gonna go.
I'm glad that it's.
So they canceled that.
And I'll tell you, the cruise ships are dangerous because they,
You're enclosed.
although, now my daughter was out visiting when some of this happened, and she was supposed to meet up with some of her friends that she's from Louisville, Kentucky. She was out here for my birthday. We had a great time, but she had some friends. We were going to go over to and I couldn't take a tour up there. When Mom played all the nurses, she said, got driving through there. And I said, come home, and that's it.
Yeah.
So they all went home, but my daughter said that the flight home to the plane was cleaner. She does a lot of flying with her husband. She said the plane was cleaner than you would have ever saw. You could have eaten
Oh, yeah.
because the airlines must have just gone through and she said
They had sense enough
to do that.
catch on right away.
But, you know, so I
And then some of these cruise lines still want to go.
oh, yeah. And the cruise lines, I don't know. We went on one little one down just in Southern
Well,
California one time. We did one.
Diane has I still haven't heard from her as far as whether they're going to give them their money back or not, but they definitely are not going. Because that was just next week, maybe, you know, a week from now, they'll be on their ship. And it was bothering her
A lot of people.
2 or 3 weeks ago when Freddie first announced it. She says, oh my gosh, we've got this cruise coming up. I don't know what to do. You know, she didn't do anything. She checked, and it was too late when they decided they wouldn't go. It was too late for them to get any money back.
Oh, I think,
But
yeah,
if the cruise line has to cancel,
yeah,
Right.
then that's a different story.
yeah.
You know, I don't think I can get my husband on a ship. We got transport ships going to
Yeah.
with the military. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done all I'm gonna do. Not going anymore.
The ones that carry 3,000 people
Yes.
are a little bit too much. They're just a little, yeah, the river
Right, and
cruise.
then he was at Fort Ord too, where Fort Ord had a big lot of people in West Point.
Yeah.
And, you know, they did, they had it's gonna be hard. I think it's gonna probably get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Oh, let's hope not.
And I hope not too, but
We've caught it fast enough that
yeah, they,
hopefully.
so gosh, look at that.
And if people would just stay at home
Yeah.
and not go on that
Travel or not.
when he said travel ban, I thought he meant everybody staying here.
Yeah.
But no,
No, just every, yeah, no, I think they should, right, they shouldn't go. But some people, young people, oftentimes, you know, they've got this attitude, well,
Yeah, they're infallible.
I want to do this, or I want to do
Yeah.
that, or people are overreacting, and,
My son and daughter-in-law are in Cabo San Lucas.
oh, yeah, well, we have a brother that lives there.
Oh, really?
My cousin's brother and his wife live in Cabo, and they can't understand why we won't go there.
Yeah.
was that Mexico?
In
We
Baja.
have,
In Baja.
We won't do that.
we've been one time, and what we did was we walked across the border to Tijuana. And that is the only time we've ever been in Mexico, aside
Please
from
stand and turn to 158 in your red hymnal. Please join us
when
as
we
we sing
were
Come Christians, join
crossing
to sing.
Panama Canal.
Come Christians, join to sing. Hallelujah, amen. Come Christians, Christ our King. Hallelujah, amen.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to Lincoln United Methodist Church. We're so glad that you're here this morning. It's been a weird week. Has it got been a little strange? I know we have some people that are here watching the service live. We do have a little camera, just so you know, set up on the pedestal. You'll make sure not to bump that. That's just allowing people who it's better for them to stay at home, and we want them to do that, to join us virtually, and we're thankful for that technology. A couple of announcements. As you might have guessed, most things are canceled, right? So we're going to hold off on Bible study for the next couple of weeks. On Wednesday morning, there's usually the soul keeping class. However, we're going to take a pause on that for a couple of weeks. Same thing, the corned beef and cabbage dinner this week has been canceled. The youth co-op's being canceled. As many of you know, the school districts are out for the next 4 weeks. And then we did have to make the decision to cancel the Armani Children's Choir as well, which is sad. And one thing I will note is that was going to be a free will offering that evening with those kids coming to perform. So if it's on your heart to give, even though we're not having that event, if it's $5 or $10 or anything, we would gladly take that and donate it to the Amani Children's Choir on behalf of the church. A couple things, if you're not currently on our email list and you'd like to be, please see either Vinny or I after church to get your email address. That's how we're going to be updating people, is through Facebook and through email, because of the situation that's occurring. There may be more restrictions put on place, through the health department or whatnot, and we want to keep you abreast of any changes here at Lincoln United Methodist Church. Long term, we are looking to possibly begin a small choir. We know we have some musically talented folks in our congregation, and so if that's something, obviously we're not going to start that in the next couple of weeks, but if that's something you're interested in, we need you to email or talk to Vinny. And that way we can start planning for that, because we have so many nice, talented musicians in our congregation and visitors as well. We are still going to plan on having, on March 28th, the church cleanup day. And if that changes, we'll let you know, but I think we can all agree that right now cleaning's a good thing. So March 28th, we're still going to plan on the church cleanup day. Please place your programs on the way out in the basket by the door, because we will recycle all of those. And, one last thing. We did hire a cleaning service. So they are going to start this week on Tuesday. They're going to be cleaning the sanctuary, the fellowship hall, the kitchen, the children's rooms, and the bathrooms. And the bathrooms will get done weekly. So just wanted to let everyone know about that. We're looking forward to having her come and her staff come with her. Any other announcements that I'm missing this morning? Oh, wait.
So I don't people are worried about it. Talked to Betty Ellison yesterday, and Jim came home.
Okay.
And he's doing pretty good. So we just keep him in our prayers.
Okay. Yes. If you're not aware, Jim Ellison had a small heart attack. Was that right?
Yeah.
A heart complication, and so we're glad to hear that Jim's doing okay. That being said, the next few weeks too, we just want to encourage everyone to reach out to one another via phone. Check on your neighbors, check on your friends here at church. If you're struggling, you feel like, gosh, I just want to talk to somebody, we encourage you to call Vinny up. He's making himself very available the next few weeks to either talk by phone or come and visit at a house. I know some people would rather not have somebody come visit, so phone calls also are fine. Okay? All right.
Well, the Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Since we're not going to do any passing of peace at this time, if you want to make each other feel welcome, we're going to say the peace of Christ to you on the count of 3. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Peace
of Christ to you.
Amen. Amen. Won't you join me in our call to worship? You can remain seated this morning. Join me in our call to worship as it is printed in your program. Come, all who thirst, come to the water.
You belong to the water of life. Come and drink. Come and drink.
Dip your soul into the river of God's goodness.
21st is God's love grace.
For God is here among us, offering living water to all who would drink.
Let us worship God together. Amen.
Amen. Won't you join me as we sing together, Come Thou Almighty King, in the red hymnal, hymn 61, Come Thou Almighty King. We are going to sing all 4 lines together. This is the good news. There is no ranking in God's kingdom. God graces everyone with the same gifts: mercy, restoration, new life.
God has kept the covenant. We have been forgiven. We have been made new people. Thanks to God. Amen.
Amen. Won't you join us in the Faith We Sing hymnal, Black hymnal 2056. We're going to sing together, God is so good. 2056 in the Black hymnal.
God is so good.
Our Father together. Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
we're going to sing together, He Leadeth Me, in the red hymnal, 128. In the red hymnal, we will just sing verses 1 and 4, lines 1 and 4. 128, He Leadeth Me, lines 1 and 4.
Today, we're going to be reading from Exodus 17, 1 through 7. That's our scripture reading for today. The whole Israelite community broke camp and set out from the Sin Desert to continue their journey as the Lord commanded. They set up their camp at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people argued with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why are you arguing with me? Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people were very thirsty for water there, and they complained to Moses, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us, our children, and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What should I do with this people? They are getting ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of Israel's elders with you. Take in your hand shepherd's rod that you used to strike the Nile River and go. I'll be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Hit the rock. Water will come out of it, and the people will be able to drink. Moses did so while Israel's elders watched. He called the place Massah and Meribah, because the elders argued with and tested the Lord, asking, "Is the Lord really with us or not?" This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a strange times we're living in, eh? What a time, especially for this to be going on during this Lenten season, when we're supposed to be reminded of our frailty and our weakness and our mortality. When things in our world go on to such an extent as coronavirus, things like that, it makes this Lenten season that much more resonant. Wouldn't you agree? It really makes things percolate to the surface. We've been exploring together a series during this Lenten season called In the Wilderness. And a few weeks ago, we looked at Jesus going out and being tempted in the wilderness by the enemy. The temptation, the challenge was to define himself outside of the love of God through what he could do, through what others thought of him, or through the power that he could acquire. And we said to ourselves, that's kind of the temptation we often face. Rather than see ourselves as the beloved, rather than see ourselves as a child of God, we try to prove ourselves by claiming these other false identities. And so we look at the challenge that we face in the wilderness regarding defining ourselves. Then last week we looked at John 3:16. We talked about believing in the wilderness. We talked about what does it mean to believe? What does it mean to put our confidence and trust in God? What we saw was, despite what many people often think regarding John 3:16, which is you just kind of say a sinner's prayer, you're good to go, and that's it. Rather than John 3:16 being that, it's actually a call to live in an ongoing, abiding relationship of trust and faithfulness in God, so that when we do that, we experience now, in the present, not after we die, but now, heaven's life, God life, real life. And so the challenge last week was to continue to put ourselves in that place of trusting God and having confidence in God, so that we can be people who believe in the wilderness. And today, this third part of our series, we're having a 4-part series. The third part we're going to be talking about is complaining in the wilderness, grumbling in the wilderness. Now, many of you can tune out right now because I know no one here has a problem with grumbling or complaining, so you can just kind of sit back and relax. But for maybe 1 or 2 of you out there that every now and then find yourself realizing things aren't really going your way, and they should be going your way, and so you start grumbling and complaining. Well, listen up. Here's a short word that hopefully today will speak to your heart and edify you and challenge you and encourage you. Today, we're going to look at how problems that threaten our survival can lead us to question God. Problems that threaten our survival can lead us to questioning and wondering. They can drive us to go back. Making progress, we're doing all these wonderful things, and all of a sudden, disaster hits, and what do we want to do? We want to run back. There's so many things that have been going on in this church, I had to say to myself, wow, this is going to be a real bummer. You know, we're going to be experiencing some real trial as a church community together. We've been having so much wonderful momentum here. We've been having visitors, we've been having, high attendance, and all of a sudden, boom, coronavirus. I find myself, oh man, well, going back to square one. Maybe so, maybe not though. Maybe this is a new way of expanding ourselves. Maybe there are new opportunities, new possibilities. Maybe it's our perspective and our attitude that needs to be shifted, huh? But when this kind of thing happens, there's a temptation to forget all the good things that life has brought us thus far. And this is what happened to Israel in today's passage. And I think it can happen to us as well. Complaining and grumbling, it is a real threat to our life with God, and also our life in community with one another. But part of our training in growing in holiness, in being more like Christ, means learning how to stop grumbling. In 1729, while John Wesley was a student at Oxford, John Wesley, you know, is the pioneer of our denomination as Methodists. Well, in 1729, while John Wesley was a student at Oxford, he started a club with his brother Charles. It was soon mockingly dubbed the Holy Club by some of his fellow collegians. The club members rigorously self-examined themselves every day by asking 22 questions. You want to know what the 21st question was? I thought this was so interesting. The 21st question, they would ask themselves, they would examine themselves, they would bring to their consciousness, they would be very intentional about their spiritual growth. So they would ask themselves these questions. Have any of you ever done this? When you're trying to better yourself, you're trying to improve yourself, you actually come down to, what are my priorities? What's my focus list? Well, this is what they were doing in their spiritual formation. And the 21st question was this: do I grumble or complain constantly? Do I grumble or complain constantly? By the way, if you want to look these up online, feel free to look them up online. It's a very interesting list. But let's go ahead and kind of look at this passage. We're going to look at this passage just noting some ways that we can offset the tendency to complain so that we can remain centered in times of trial, difficulty, and threat. Look at verse 1. Verse 1 says, the whole Israelite community broke camp and set out from the Sin Desert to continue their journey as the Lord commanded. So here we see God's people continuing their journey in the wilderness. As the Lord commanded, is what it says. That is, they were continuing their journey. They were continuing their faith journey, looking forward to God's promises. But they were journeying into the unknown. Now, like the ancient Israelites, many of us feel a sense of God's call in our life. Do you feel a sense of God's call in your life? Do you feel a sense that you are attempting to walk with God in this thing called life? As we feel God's call, we kind of are doing those things that we feel God is calling us to do, but all of a sudden, then it happens. The roadblock, the tragedy, the unexpected, the bad news. And so verse 2. They set up their camp at Rephidim, but there was no water, there was no toilet paper.
No.
I'm sorry. There was no water. I don't know what translation I was reading there for a second. There was no water for the people to drink. The people argued with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Now don't be too hard on the people here. I think a lot of us would do this, wouldn't you? If you were being let out, if you were going out to camp, if you were going to be camping in the wilderness or in the wild or something, and then you turned to the leader and said, I think it's time to drink and to eat, and they said, what? Give us water to drink, Moses said to them. Why are you arguing with me? Why are you testing the Lord? But the people were very thirsty for water there, and they complained to Moses. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us, our children, and our livestock with thirst? Can't you just hear it? Can't you just see him? He called the place Massah in Meribah because the Israelites argued with and tested the Lord, asking, is the Lord really with us or not? Trial, challenge, threat to our safety, to our health. It brings out the state of our soul. And oftentimes we find ourselves questioning God, questioning the reality of God and the goodness of God in such times. On one hand, we can identify the seriousness of their concern, can't we? I mean, they're in the wilderness, they're in the desert, they have animals that need to be fed, they have family, they have kids that need to be taken care of. And here we have no water, an absence of water. My goodness, does this sound familiar to any of you? People frantically running around from shopping, market to grocery store, trying to find, looking for the resources, getting scared and panicking. But Moses sees their complaint as a threat to his personal safety and as a serious lack of faith in God. It says the people argued with Moses. That word in the Hebrew, argue, is literally, it's a formal word used when they would actually come to court and a legal complaint was filed. So it wasn't that they were just complaining, they were actually doing those things that you would do to get ready for a trial and to bring a verdict to bear. So this is what's actually going on. They're getting ready to bring Moses to court. Actually, in verse 4 it says, Moses says to God, they're getting ready to stone me. I mean, this is what's happening. They're coming together, they're congregating, they're going to put Moses on trial, they're going to bring a case against him, they're going to pass a verdict, and they're going to kill him. They're going to stone him. And they lost confidence in their spiritual leader. And they lost confidence in God as well. In verse 7 it says, they were saying, is the Lord really with us or not? Is the Lord really with us or not? Isn't this what happens to us too? This is what happens to us. We attempt to follow God and are led to a place in our life that threatens the foundation of our security. And that can be a challenge to our health. It can be a breakdown in a relationship. It can be financial difficulties. It could be viruses, pandemics. The certainty of our answers all of a sudden don't seem so certain anymore. It no longer works. And so we begin to spurn those who have led us spiritually, be they mentors, be they spouses, be they pastors or friends, and we question whether God is really here or not. And therefore, pretty soon we're ready to quit church, ready to quit faith, ready to quit the whole enterprise of the faith journey altogether. See, this is what complaining does. It brings us to the place where we lose confidence in God and others. And this is where the Israelites were headed. And it's where we are also headed if we find ourselves caught up in the habit of complaining as we journey with God in the wilderness. You know, complaining, think about it. I think it's a very subtle way we strengthen our own ego, our own pride, and become very entitled individuals. Things aren't going our way, right? And so when they don't go our way, we complain. Because we discount and discredit everyone else, including God, in the name of security, self-interest, and control. Simply put, complaining kills faith and cuts the spiritual journey short of its destination. So how can we resist the temptation to complain or be led out of it for ourselves? Well, verse 4 and following. So Moses cried out to the Lord. Moses cried out to the Lord. What should I do with this people? They're getting ready to stone me. The Lord said to Moses, go on ahead of the people. Go ahead of the people and take some of Israel's elders with you. Take in your hand the shepherd's rod that you used to strike the Nile River and go. I'll be standing there in front of you on the rock Horeb. Hit the rock. Water will come out of it, and the people will be able to drink. Moses did so while Israel's elders watched. You know, Moses here, I think, becomes a wonderful, wonderful illustration for us on how we can overcome the problems and temptations, the temptations to complain. Whether we're surrounded by others who complain or find ourselves grumbling more and more lately. And I don't know about you, but I find myself wanting to grumble a little bit more and more lately. I had some plans. I had some vacation. I mean, we were getting ready to go to Italy. You know? We were going to take a trip. We're going to have some fun. And now, virus. So what do I find myself? I want to complain, God, but perfect timing. Right? But I think Moses here becomes a wonderful illustration. These verses become wonderful material for instruction for us. Notice how the help came to Moses. Notice how the help came. In verse 4, what did Moses do? Moses cried out to the Lord. Moses cried out to who?
Lord.
The Lord. He cried out to the Lord. Moses saw God's help via communion. Here's the first lesson. Lesson number 1, communion. Communion with God. communion with God in prayer. See, the next time I'm tempted to complain, I'm going to invite myself to shoot up a prayer. Matter of fact, make your complaint a prayer. Rather than complain, transform that complaint into a prayer. And some may be saying, why? God doesn't want that. He doesn't want me to pray and to complain and to voice out my feelings to Him that are kind of somewhat, I feel, negative. Well, actually, yes, He does. We have a whole tradition in our Bible called the Psalms. Have you ever heard of these? The Psalms? Many of the Psalms are complaints, put to song, put to prayer. So maybe what we should do is we can do what Moses did. We can bring our complaints to God, or we can make our complaints a prayer to God. But the key is to connect with God, to identify that we are in a state of complaining, and to bring that to God. Ask God to help, to give you a bigger perspective than the one you have. This is something we do before the Lord, but there's something we need to do with ourselves. We need to have communion with God in prayer, but we also need to have courage with ourselves by faith. In verse 5, God says to Moses, go on ahead of the people. Go on ahead of the people. Go through them, pass through them, get on ahead of them. Now, if you're Moses, what are you thinking at this point? You've got a bunch of people, they're very angry at you. Some of them may be, they've made the verdict, they're picking up the stones. Okay, if I'm Moses, I'm not going ahead of the people, I'm going away from the people. Are you with me? I'm not going through the place of threat that provokes fear and worry. Those people are getting ready to stone me. I am going the other way. Well, God says, go ahead of the people. See, Moses had to pass through the place of fear and hostility. He had to he had to face, as it were, his fear. And that took courage. Remember, those people wanted to stone Moses. I think overcoming the temptation of complaining not only takes communion with God, it takes courage with ourselves. Courage to overcome our fears, to face our fears, to pass through them with the help of God and God's Spirit and God's grace, indeed, but also with the determination rooted in such things, surrounded by faith. See, complaining not only stems from our wanting to be in control, but our being afraid of what we cannot control. And that will hurt us, and so we lose heart. We can lose heart. Complaining is therefore a form of cowardice, if you think about it, or avoidance. It's often masking itself as wisdom, right? I'm just doing what's necessary. Well, really? Maybe you're just afraid. But it masks, we oftentimes use the cover of wisdom to mask this. Or we're just telling it like it is. But we're not. We're afraid. And so we have to have courage. And courage is gained in communion with God in prayer. It's also gained by examining your complaint, looking at your complaint, and seeing the fear or the dissatisfaction beneath it, and asking yourself, can I, like Moses, move ahead of this fear and dissatisfaction? And that's exactly what Moses did. He courageously went ahead of the source of complaining in his day, which was the people that were getting ready to stone him. So think about an example of this. So you're complaining about maybe some responsibility, something you have to do, and you begin complaining, but then you look at that complaint and you begin to examine it, you begin to prayerfully ask God to give you a little perspective, and you realize you're just afraid. You're afraid of maybe it's failure. And you see the fear. You ask God to help you overcome it. This coronavirus, that can get us complaining. Wouldn't you agree? This can get us into a state of panic and worry, but also, along with that, with complaining. But what's really going on beneath our complaint? What's really happening? What's really going on with us and the state of our soul, rather than just the inconveniences, right? And the adjusting of our very affluent, comfortable lives? Is there a fear or annoyance beneath the supposed justified concern? I'm just being concerned. Is there something beneath there that's robbing you, that's robbing me of my trust in God? Courage. Let's take heart and face the trials, even pandemics, with faith and courage. Amen, sisters and brothers?
Amen.
Amen. Let's do that. But we can't do it alone. And it's one of the great paradoxes of this current predicament is that in times of crisis, people usually come together. And this is a time of crisis where people really shouldn't be coming together. All right? This language of social distancing has entered our public consciousness. Social distancing. By the way, I thought we were already doing that before this ever happened, right? We're just walking around doing this, you know?
Yeah.
Social distancing. But this is not something we can just do with God and with ourselves. But we have to do it with others. Verse 5 says, take some of the elders with you, Moses. Take some of the elders with you, Moses. You don't have to face this alone. We're not alone at this time. That's a gift the gospel has given us. We're not going to get that in the news media. You're not going to get it on the TV. You're going to be like, it's all up to you. You're by yourself. It's every man for themselves. And right? We don't think that. As those who follow Jesus, as those who claim the gospel, we are together. We are a family. We are a community. And we can help one another, not people who be people of complaining. Overcoming the temptation to complain often means reaching out to others. Sometimes it is difficult to overcome our fears by ourselves. It's very difficult. So we need to ask others for help. We need to ask others to accompany us and help us move beyond the things that are holding us back. We like to think that all we need is God. And all we need is a communion. Communion piece. I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to hang out with God. Or some of us may say, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to do it on my own. Don't really maybe need God or others. The fact is that we need God. We need the courage that we need to find for ourselves. But we also need others. We also need community. Communion, courage, community. People who listen and can help us move beyond our fears. These are our elders. We need in our life. Who is this for you? Who can you confide in and allow you to face your fears and your lack of faith when you encounter a desperate, no water situation here? I'm hoping that we can be that for one another as a church family. But maybe it's your spouse. Maybe there's someone else. Maybe there's someone in your community. Maybe there's a friend. Maybe there's a relative. But we have to find ways to connect. Now more than ever. Now more than ever. Complaining is weakened in our communion with God, our courage with ourselves, and community with others. But there's one final step before we bring this to a close. There's one final step we must take. We must decide. We must consent. We must obey. And do what is necessary. Verse 6, God says, take the shepherd's rod, strike the stone, I will be with you, water will come. We spend time in communion with God. We spend time taking courage with ourselves. We spend time in community with one another. And then we follow through on the word of the Lord as we have discerned it in all these spheres. And we follow through. And you know what's going to happen? Oftentimes that word that comes to us is going to be ridiculous. It's going to sound weird. It's going to almost appear insane. I would think, God, if you're going to set the water, can't you just kind of rain, the water come down, make a little pool of water, and then we go and we drink the water? That sounds a little more reasonable, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. God's going to give water, so he's just going to make the rain come. Right? Or is the ground's going take that stick, hit this rock. You see what's going on here? This is an act of trust. It's an act of trust. And it seems on the surface ridiculous and out of the ordinary. And it is. It is. But that's where the miracle happens. And I think the same is true with us. When we follow through on the word of the Lord, it oftentimes doesn't make sense. It's not something we could have thought up. It's out of the range of our comprehension. But we feel this is what we need to do. And so what do? We do it. We do it. Others around us, people around us, even ourselves, and I wonder, what's going on? What are you doing? This is not what you usually do. This is not how you usually behave. This is not business as usual. And you come to realize, yeah, that's the point. This is where breakthroughs happen. This is where insight comes. This is where wisdom is born. Great insight and wisdom usually come to us outside the realm of our ordinary, normal channels of knowing. And it's usually tragedy is the only thing strong enough to take us there. Otherwise, we just stay in the familiar. But it's here that we encounter breakthroughs we would have never otherwise received had we not thought out of the box or been taken out of the box through prayer and courage and community. And allow the foolish wisdom of God to shape how we deal with our particular temptation or tragedy. So I leave you with this, sisters and brothers, as we continue on together through this uncertain time, as we begin to close, and before we depart, and as we enter, again, these uncertain times, the temptation is to grumble and to complain and to move away, to back away. I want to invite you to allow this to let you go deeper in your walk with God, and your journey with God, and with your brothers and sisters here in community at Lincoln United Methodist Church. Let this lead you into deeper levels of spiritual growth, communion with God, courage with yourself, community with one another, and consent and obey to do the word of the Lord. And all God's people said,
Amen.
Amen. I want to invite the ushers, or those who are at least helping with ushering, to come forward. We're going to take up a short offering at this time.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you.
Father God, we're so thankful for all the good things that you give us. Help us to have a spirit of gratitude this week. We ask that you take our offerings and our gifts, both those given monetarily and those given in service this week to others, that you would take them and use them for your glory. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
May you go forth from this place with this blessing, living in the communion of God, taking courage, gathering in community, and consenting to the word that will flourish you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Blessed be. Please turn to 668 as we end in our closing hymn.
Let us now depart in thy peace, Jesus. Send us forth with God's love in our hearts. Let thy praise take our loyalties. We must ever
Right, Dan.
Yes.
There's no coffee today.
got
Sorry
this
to tell you,
hooked up.
there's no coffee in the village